Welcome to the Thought Leaders video blog, where industry executives share their insights and vision in today's landscape of live entertainment.
Well, welcome today. We have a special guest, Jon Allen, Associate VP and Chief Information and Security Officer at Baylor University. Welcome, Jon.
Hey, great to see you. Appreciate you reaching out and setting this up. Looking forward to having a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we start? Tell us a little bit about the IT strategy you have there on campus at Baylor, and how do you use technology to kind of elevate the overall experience?
So we've spent the last really 2 or 3 years at Baylor University rethinking how technology is going to drive us forward. People often throw out the word technology transformation right now. And I think the problem with that is technology is the first word. It's really transformation that's the key there, right? Technology needs to be the underlying girder that's transparent, enabling, and at the end of the day supports the business. And so we've just gone through a lot of work around our ERP systems, around our advancement systems, around going back and working with partners to make sure that we're getting strong solutions. I think we've entered this time with cloud services where there's so many point solutions out there. And I think we have to make sure, hey, are we addressing these things as a holistic approach, or are we just playing whack-a-mole, right? And so I think that's where having a real strong digital strategy of how you're going to be connecting your overall technology infrastructure going forward so that it enables the business is crucial. And that's really the approach we've taken and are continuing to take going forward, because the other thing this enables is continuous improvement. The idea that you're going to turn on a system or enable a new technology and leave it for 5 years and never think about it is gone, right? With cloud solutions, with the expectations of consumers and your constituents on campus, the expectation is things are improving just as fast as your iPhone. And so that pace of innovation is crucial to show that you're actually a strong technology partner going forward.
Yeah, that completely resonates with me, especially transformation. That's what I've been working on the last several years here at Paciolan. Just for us, just the way we produce the software is one piece of a service provider for you guys there at Baylor. So I can appreciate that. Hey, so it's a little crazy now. We have COVID-19 and little constraints around there. How's that kind of impacted or changed the way you deploy technology on campus?
It's interesting because you get back to some of the basic blocking and tackling, right? You're talking about, hey, do we have good wireless coverage, right? Hey, are our vendors going to scale? We've all seen, we're dependent on cloud services, but frankly, all these cloud services are getting tested in ways that we never expected. And so you're going back, you're looking at your SLAs, you're talking about, hey, what are my redundancies, right? If this thing fails, what's my cog to plug in to help make that work? You're talking about technologies that you probably wouldn't have been before. So things like occupancy sensors, right? And understanding density of people in spaces, all these sort of technologies that frankly, you're kind of like, this wasn't even on the radar 8 months ago, may not have even existed in the way that we've been talking about it lately. And so I think that's the interesting thing is the pivots that have happened. I know for us, the idea that, you have virtual meetings all day. Nobody in our environment had virtual meetings all day, right? And now I think we're all sitting there going, why aren't we doing a lot more virtual meetings before, right? Like there's upsides to this. I do worry that innovation maybe doesn't necessarily stem as well out of these platforms until we get better at it. The hallway conversations are lacking, the things like that, but there's certainly a lot of things on the other side of it. It's just not this moment in time of using the technologies. It's how is this going to pivot us going forward? And what things coming out of this are we going to say, wow, that was a really good thing we did and learned through this process that we're going to use going forward. And so I think that's the piece I'm kind of excited about for us, collaboration platform, right? Whether it be for us, it's Teams, whether it be Slack or something else that people are using, that has become a hub that just didn't exist traditionally. And it's really changed the way we do business day to day and interacting with our constituents.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I mean, we're a technology company, so we have the likes of Zoom already in place and Slack and all the other tech to collaborate remotely and digitally. But we're finding, with our clients, they're now on video with us when before it was a phone call, and so it's great to see everyone's face, the reaction, the engagement. So I think there's some good stuff to take forward. But on your note on innovation, so it is a little challenging. How do you kind of lean into innovation, given it's such a crazy time and year, and your folks aren't always, in reach of you.
Right. No, I think the big thing is to make sure that when people have ideas, you talk it through, right? And so that's the piece, right? Right out the gate, we'll have people say things, hey, could we do this? Or is this a way to challenge something? And I think, in the past, it was happening while people grabbed a cup of coffee or things like that. The way I have it happening more and more now is it's coming up in other meetings, right? Where all of a sudden somebody says, hey, I know we're trying to solve this problem, but has anybody thought about this related to this? And so it's sort of this idea of how do you park something, but make sure you come back to it. And I've seen that happening a lot where, hey, yeah, that's a really good idea. We need to chase that. Because I think those are the opportunities that are lacking in this virtual world right now is, how do you make sure everybody's speaking up? I will say, I think more people contribute in the virtual world than did in physical space, office space meetings. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because we're all techies a lot of times on the meetings or, more comfortable in front of a screen than sitting in front of a conference table. But from that perspective, we've had people speak up that frankly may not have traditionally. And so I think there's some positives to that, but it's absolutely encouraging ideas. I don't care how crazy they are. I don't care if there's funding for them right now, but I think building that whole culture where having an idea is valued is really, really important to then, hey, where are the right fits for the technology? And the piece I say is every idea isn't solved with technology. I think that's the other thing is, and I'm sure you would step into this too, is, my job as a CIO, and I'm sure you as CTO, I'm there to say, this is a good use of technology and this is not a good use of technology, right? And I think 10 years ago, anybody in our seats would have sat there and said, oh, everything can be solved with technology, right? And I think that's an evolution.
Well, you learn with experience. No, that's
exactly
great.
Right.
And I think, because ideas do spark innovation. So that's excellent. You touched on that. And I think at least within our organization, I'm finding folks have slightly more time, I guess, to reflect, for lack of a better word. And so I think there is a little more ideation. People are coming up with some more ideas where maybe, in the past, they were kind of in a little bit of a rut or didn't have a little think time. So that's great.
Yeah.
So one of the innovations you helped us with is virtual queuing. Can you talk a little bit about how you're using that or planning on using that at Baylor as it looks like some football games are going to be played with a little bit of attendance there on campus?
Yeah, that's the plan. Big 12's moving forward. September 12th is going to be the first game. We're going to be running the facility around 25% capacity, so about 10,000 fans in the facility overall. It's interesting because that ideation, virtual queuing wasn't something that was dreamed up in our team from a technology perspective. It was to meet the need of our athletics group, right? Athletics said, hey, this is a problem. We know there's some canned solutions out there that solve that niche problem, but don't necessarily plug into the bigger picture. And that's where I kind of raised up right away. And I'm like, hey, you're going to cause yourself more problems by going niche. Let's reach out to our partner. Let's have a conversation and say, hey, this is our need. How do we plug this into an ecosystem that's going to be fully supported? And so what you guys have been able to do in delivering it via mobile and thinking about the different ways that it all can work and even future planning that, right? Because frankly, I think this is something, we've all seen the ideas at theme parks and things like that. Why didn't we think of this years ago, right? Like, why isn't this something? And so it's one of these, I see this as something coming out the other side, right? Hey, nobody likes standing in lines. Why don't we just manage it this way going forward as a great way, as a customer experience, as a fan experience? And that's really what we're looking to do, right? Is to make sure that we're meeting the criteria around social distancing, things like that, managing our crowds, managing our resources. And this tool is going to allow us to do that. And so that's going to be a big piece of it as we roll out really in about 2.5 weeks now. It's coming up quick.
Yeah. I'm excited to launch that with you guys and see it in action. And I think you're right. I think there will be a few ideas and products that still have legs post COVID, whether it's fan experience add-ons or just operational efficiencies. And I think one of the things I've seen, one of the silver linings of COVID from my perspective, because we want to go digital and mobile, right, is
right.
COVID has forced the entire population to go mobile and contactless. So how do you see
Yeah.
mobile playing into your overall experience at Baylor, whether it's, whether we're involved or whether it's in venue and other things on campus?
Well, I mean, absolutely. So we have made the decree. We're going 100% mobile this year. We were already leaning that direction strongly, but this was the nice impetus to move that forward completely. I think the dynamic nature of that, whether it be to enable better fan experience with things like virtual queuing, things like that, whether it be to help prevent fraud because you're doing just-in-time delivery, right, of scanning and things like that. There's just so much upside that the traditional methods of physical card stock just couldn't provide. And so I think that's one thing we're definitely seeing. As I think we go through the entire venue, there's a lot of opportunities, whether it be, you look at how are we going to handle point of sale going forward? How are we going to handle a lot of those different items? And those are absolutely areas that we're continuing to make sure, hey, we can support some of the latest payment technologies. We can go cashless as much as possible in the venue wherever possible. And so I think those are the types of things, even things like your foundation cards, right? Going virtual on foundation cards and making sure that those aren't things that people are having to fumble around with wallets and all those kinds of things. So in the end, I think it's interesting because people are accepting this is a better way to do things, but it's not for the reason we would have expected, right? I think if we'd all said, hey, we're going mobile, there would have been an uprising. And now they're like, why aren't you guys mobile? It's like, oh yeah, we can do that. So I think it's great that we're not having to sell it, right? It's just become a cultural norm going forward.
Yeah, and much like the airlines kind of train the population to put a pass on their phone, all other aspects of not wanting to touch anything is training everybody to pay contactless and use your mobile phone for everything. So yeah, I think that's awesome. One of the other innovations you kind of helped us with, not necessarily related to COVID at all, but to help pioneer was single sign-on and shibboleth and the impact. Share some of your thoughts around the benefits of that and what does that really unlock for you guys at Baylor?
Yeah, so I'm going to switch hats on you a little bit. So I do have both hats of both the information officer and the information security officer. And so from a security side, right, the idea of having people have multiple credentials that couldn't easily be two-factored, it's just something that moving forward, we really push our students, hey, it's one identity, it's one password, it's one two-factor. It just enables a better security and user experience, frankly, especially for those credentials that they may not use all the time. And so, in seasons, sure, they may be using them once a week, but we all know how we do it, right? We go and reset the password to something that we know in the moment. Maybe some people put it in a password locker that's secure, things like that. But more often than not, next time you go to it, you go to reset it, right? And so it's this whole strategy of, hey, let's not enable people setting easy passwords for things that are pretty important, right? I mean, when we're talking about access and ticketing environments and things, those are things we want to make sure that we're having high level of security. And fortunately, higher education, probably more so than any vertical, has been all about federated identity. Hey, let's plug into our service providers. Let's handle the identity piece. Let's take that off your plate. Hey, you don't even have to worry about usernames and passwords and all this stuff anymore because we have this great service of Shibboleth that allows us to do that. And today we have over 100 service providers connected into our ecosystem of identity that provides a seamless experience, whether it be to get into the LMS or get into their email or go and get involved in the ticket lottery, right? And so for students to be able to grab their tickets. So I think that's the piece is it's just much like you guys have already done, it's plugging into an ecosystem and building an ecosystem of everybody's doing the part that they do best, right? And so for us, managing people and authentication, some of our bread and butter. It's one of those core services. And for you guys, then that's something you don't have to worry about as much, which hopefully enables you to innovate in other areas.
Yeah, no, that's great, and we're happy to be one of those service providers finally.
It's great.
It was a little bit of time in the making, but I'm glad we're there, and it is a great standard to sit on, and for a lot of the reason you spoke about. Coming back to football a little bit. So you mentioned about 10,000 fans. I know you've been selling tickets this week because they've been running through our system. So good kudos there so far. It looks like there's interest. Are there other aspects of technology that we haven't spoken about yet to kind of help you with hosting fans?
Hosting fans, I think, is going to be interesting. We've talked through scenarios, whether it be, are you trying to do a hybrid experience for that fan at home who is a season ticket holder or was a season ticket holder, and how do you keep affinity, right? Is it an app that maybe there's some upgraded experiences? So we're definitely exploring things there, right? I think, as we look forward, and I know you and I have talked about this before, virtual events is key, right? So
Yeah.
how do we support virtual events? I expect virtual events to become an additional revenue source going forward. Probably not as much in the athletic space, right? Because we have a lot of rights issues and things like that. But,
Right.
if you have all the fraternities and sororities on campus and student organizations that hold an annual, singing competition or something else, an alum could get interested. We have a big thing every year on campus called Sing, right? All the organizations. It sells out so fast, no matter how many different times. I mean, you can only have the students perform it, right? 3 times a week for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
A virtual event of that, right? How great a revenue source would that be that you're supplementing what you're able to do in person with this additional space? And I think prior to this, people probably wouldn't have shown interest in these things. And I think more and more people are like, if I could sit in my living room because I can't go to the event because I live halfway across the country, and be able to be a part of it, they're going to do that. And so I see this virtual event stuff as hopefully not a replacement for, but a supplement of experience long term. And I think that even as we've seen when with Hamilton coming online and some of those things, it's not the same thing, but how can it be something that's still a positive for those that are involved?
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and I would say virtual events and streaming, and those are going to live post COVID as well for all the reasons you said, and maybe even factor in a little virtual reality or things like that, because you're right, not everybody's can make it to the venue to see the event, whatever that be, arts or sports, and I think there's a realization about that now, so it'll be super interesting to me, I think. Yeah, you mentioned the streaming of Hamilton. Probably kudos for Disney streaming, because that's what caused me to sign up for it. But
Right.
my kids got to see Hamilton. They're teenagers, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't probably have taken them to the live show. I had seen the live show, and I would agree, live and on your TV, two totally different experiences. But just the wider exposure is pretty exciting. Well, maybe one final question I have, and you touched on it earlier, is what good's going to come out of all this? So I know we've reflected a lot internally as a corporation, and I'm sure you have as a organization and a campus and a university, just looking top to bottom at everything you do, and kind of what do you see coming out of this for the good that maybe never would have got looked at or thought about?
It's interesting. We've moved so fast, right? I mean, if you go back to March, which seems like years ago, the ability for us to quickly pivot an entire university online, to then go ahead and pivot to where we're going to be doing and have started as of Monday, in-person classes, hybrid classes, online classes, all taking place simultaneously in a safe environment. I think one of the things is our organizations learned how to be extremely agile and dynamic and be able to adjust in ways that probably nobody thought we could have before. So I think that's a huge takeaway. I think the other thing is a lot of these technology solutions, right? Being able to just say, hey, how can we engage our partners and leverage what we have in really positive ways? Because the thing we have seen, budgets are a concern. Looking forward, making sure we're very fiscally conservative as much as possible so that we're protecting those tuition dollars of our students. You leverage those partners that you have. You don't try to just go out and buy a bunch more new stuff. And it's really refreshing engaging with all our partners and realizing, hey, they've got something that's going to fit this need, or they're willing to work on, some new features like you guys were with Paciolan. And so I think that's another piece of it. The other thing is I think people are going to value in person more than they were going into this. There was a massive narrative in the last few years about how in-person education's going away, how people don't want to be fans in the seats anymore, right? All these things. I expect people may not have the same sentiment on the other side of this. I think there will be a value of being at a game, right? Heck, it's not as exciting to watch a game on TV with no fans in the stands, right? Let's just be honest. I mean, they're playing great games, but it's just different. in-person experiences for school. It's more than what happens in a classroom. And so I think that's something that at least I believe is going to be a realization and a little bit of a defining moment, hopefully in the years ahead.
Yeah, great example of sometimes you don't appreciate things until you don't have them, and you're
Absolutely.
like, wow, but I'd love to go back to that day.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
Great. Well, Jon, I want to thank you for spending a little time with us today, and good luck with you. Good luck as you kick off your athletic season and everything else going on campus. I know you've got your hands full, so thanks again for taking a little bit of time.
Thank you for the partnership with Paciolan and everything you're doing to help enable what we're doing. I appreciate it and look forward to talking again soon.
All right, great. Thanks again, Jon.
All right.
Thank you for joining the Thought Leaders video blog. And remember, everyone can step up and be a leader in their own way. We look forward to seeing you next time.